Good morning and good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for joining our Mission Possible Easy Amazon Reconciliation webinar. Your presenter today is myself, Allegra Mitchell, and I'm the lead of the customer success team at Webgility. I have over 10 years of e-commerce experience, and I have personally sold products on Amazon as an Amazon seller. I have also been with the company for a very long time, and I've seen our products mature and grow, and it's great to speak in front of you today and show you around the unified product. I also have a special guest with me today, the CEO of Webgility, Parag Mamnati. He's an e-commerce expert with over 15 years of industry experience. Not only is he the founder of Webgility, but he also has experience working at Amazon leading their web store business. Welcome, Parag.
Thank you, Allegra, and it's a pleasure to be here, and welcome to everyone that's joining. We're really excited to share with you all the great new stuff we have cooking here at Webgility, and also talk about the mystery that is Amazon seller fees.
Thank you, Parag. So as you know, this is a packed webinar today, so we have a packed agenda today as well. We'll be giving an overview of selling on Amazon and share with you some terms you may or may not be acquainted with. We'll also discuss the benefits and challenges of selling on Amazon. Then we'll take you through a deep dive into the Amazon Settlement Report, and we'll talk about why reconciliation on Amazon is important and why Amazon reconciliation is so difficult. Then we'll show you, I'll introduce the Webgility OneClick Accounting for Amazon, and then I'll take you to a product tour of the OneClick Accounting and show you some of the primary components and functionality of this process. Then we'll take a couple questions, and then we'll go into a brief overview about what is Webgility Unify. Now, if you do have questions, feel free to submit your questions in the questions area in your GoToWebinar dashboard. If you have questions that pop up during our presentation, we may take a few as we go along, but we will also have an official Q&A area where we address as many questions as we can. And I would also like to mention that this webinar will be recorded, and we will send you the slides and a link to the recording after the webinar. So you don't need to take any heavy notes, and you can focus on listening and seeing the product. Before we go into a lot of the content of the webinar, we have a polling question, and we want to know how long you've been selling on Amazon. Your answers will help us tailor our presentation to kind of what level your experience with Amazon is and how long you've been experiencing the challenges of Amazon reconciliation. So let's go ahead and start the poll. I see the poll is started. Wonderful. Wow, I've got a lot of, see a lot of veterans to Amazon here. This is good. All right, let's close the poll now. Great. So I see a lot of you have been selling, actually the majority of everyone in the attendance has been selling on Amazon for over 2 years. Great. It's wonderful to be in front of a very seasoned audience here. So I think that a lot of the things that we're going to be talking to you about are going to be very actionable and really wonderful news for you. Also we've got some other folks that are a little bit new to the game. Awesome. This webinar is also geared for you too, because in your kind of start with Amazon, you're probably asking yourself a lot of these questions. So you're not alone. Your questions are all relevant. So thank you for your participation in that poll. Wonderful. Moving on. So Parag, why don't you give us an overview of selling on the Amazon platform?
First and foremost, you have to start off by creating an Amazon seller account. Since we have a lot of veterans on the line here, you probably are very familiar with the getting started process of creating an account. And as you know, there are two types of accounts. You can be a professional seller or not, and professional sellers pay a monthly recurring fee, and that's fundamentally the difference. If you're selling anything less than about 40 products or so, you probably want to sign up to be a professional seller account. Moving on, once you've set up your account, you're obviously going to have a set of items that you list. I'm sure there's a ton of enthusiasm about listing, and it can be a daunting task, but today we'll be focusing a lot more on the behind the scenes of what happens after a sale occurs. So once a sale occurs, you obviously get an email notification. You can log into your Seller Central account, and many of you might have a variety of different tools that you could be using to manage your Amazon seller business. But once the sale happens, the the biggest challenge that most sellers face is not only the fulfillment of those orders, but once that sale occurs, you actually don't see that money coming into your bank account. So there's a holding period that Amazon has, and that's the focus of our conversation today, that as the seller completes the fulfillment, whether you're fulfilling the product yourself or using fulfillment by Amazon, Amazon then figures out what all the different fees are associated with your account, and typically there's a 14-day cycle, which is known as the settlement period, and once you hit your Amazon settlement date, at that point, you receive both a settlement statement in your Amazon seller account. You also get a very, very beautiful and quite complicated Excel spreadsheet that you can download to try to make sense of what really happened. And that's when you also get an Amazon deposit, and that's where kind of all the juggling, if you will, with Amazon's expenses and fees and so forth begins. And that's really what we're going to focus on today, is how can we really demystify that and make what seems a really daunting task of settling those financial transactions, figuring out what all of those fees are, so that you're not in in real cloud of darkness, knowing kind of what's going to happen at the end of the period. We bring that settlement data to life, and you can log into our software, and of course we'll talk a little bit more about that, but really try to make sense of those fees. And I want to really point out that, while selling on Amazon, for many of you, might seem like, you've conquered it, you've figured out how to get your product listed and move on. The real challenge comes in, how do you optimize your margins and how do you make more money? And that's really what successful sellers learn and figure out really quickly, is how to fine-tune their information and understand their financials better.
Great. Thank you, Parag. So next we're going to talk about some basic terms you may or may not be familiar with. These are some terms that you have probably seen within Amazon itself, also some terms that are deeply entrenched within accounting and the reconciliation process. And of course we have the most common term that we all know is profits. That's where everything is leading to.
That's right. That's right. Go over some of the basic terms here. What is the settlement range? This is typically a 14-day window. Now, if you're a professional seller and you're a really high volume seller, a little known secret, you can actually talk to Amazon and get your settlement ranges adjusted, but that's a really, really high velocity seller ask. So definitely reach out to your account manager. If you're one of those high velocity sellers and you've been selling for many years, that is something that you can tweak. But typical sellers, Amazon does a 2-week settlement, and that's known as the settlement period. It's the date range during which all of the transactions that have happened in your seller account get reconciled. And you get a deposit based on total transactions that occurred during that period. The other thing, and most of you probably already know this because FBA has now become a multi-billion-dollar business, but FBA is fulfillment by Amazon. It's the capability that Amazon provides to sellers, where you're able to take your products, ship them in pallets or ship them in a bulk over to Amazon. Amazon then stores them in their warehouse, and whenever you receive an order, you can get those orders fulfilled. Now, again, it's a bit beyond the scope of our presentation today, but there are tons of benefits to FBA, and you get some incredible benefits in terms of products that get qualified for Prime, so you can get free 2-day shipping or even next day shipping in some cases if you use FBA. And the rates are very, very competitive, especially if you're thinking about, seasonal changes. I know, again, margins can be really tight, and storage fees, if you are to have your own location, can be really high. So you can really work with Amazon there to get your fulfillment set up. To also add here in terms of fulfillment, you not only can do fulfillment by Amazon for items that are sold on Amazon itself, but you can also use FBA to ship items that you might sell on your own online store. And I think we have a poll question, but we'd love to hear also how many folks that are attending today, of the mass attendance. I see a lot of folks here. It would be great to understand how many of you are multi-channel sellers. The next piece is just FBM, and this is kind of, if you look through the world of the Amazon lens, FBA is what they promote the most, but there is, of course, fulfillment by merchant, which is where you're going to be doing the fulfillment yourself instead of using Amazon as the intermediary. A deposit is fairly self-explanatory, but at the end of every settlement range, you get a statement. All the fees and expenses have been subtracted from all the revenue that you received during that time, and you get a deposit in your bank account. The next piece is reconciliation. This is probably where most people get lost around, what is reconciliation, and I wouldn't be surprised if many of you shy away from it and simply pass it on to your bookkeepers. But reconciliation is where you really try to make sense of how much the deposit was from Amazon was, and how does that really correlate to all the revenue, the product sales, the fees that you incurred during that time. And QuickBooks Online has an interesting way. It calls it matching. So you see a deposit in your account, and we'll show you a quick screenshot of this going forward. But in QuickBooks Online, it's called matching, whereas in Xero, it's called reconciliation. And ultimately, the goal is to really figure out what your profitability is so that you know, net of all of your fees and expenses and product costs, how much money you're really making.
Yes, and Parag, you talk a lot about optimizing margins and finding out where that level of the expenditures to how much profit a seller is making when they're selling on the Amazon platform. So let's talk about some of those benefits of selling on the Amazon platform, just so we can really kind of talk about what those margins that we're optimizing, what are they?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, put simply, Amazon is all about access. If you're a small business and you're an online seller or you're multi-channel, I think the biggest struggle you have is how do you get all of the products that you're selling in the hands and view and give your customers access. And the struggle usually is if you're launching your own online store or have been selling offline for some time, it's how do you promote those products? How do you get the eyeballs that you need to your products so that you can start to increase your sales velocity? And it should be no surprise, Amazon's been really an incredible success story, and you have, over 150 billion in revenue happening on Amazon, and it should be no surprise, if you're like me, I was at Home Depot just last week, and I was looking to find these replacement halogen bulbs for my backyard, and lo and behold, you go to the store and you find, two brands, but inevitably what you end up doing is, starting with Amazon and looking for, okay, well, I need 12-watt halogen bulbs. And once you type that in, now you have such selection, you have such access to so many sellers. And, about 10 years ago, the number was somewhere around 30-35%, and now almost 51% of all Amazon unit sales are happening through third party. So it's not just about Amazon selling, but it's third party sellers getting access to those millions and millions of views that are happening on their site every day. There's more than 300 active customer accounts worldwide. So it's really about getting access. Now, once you get that access, of course, there's a lot of fine-tuning in terms of profit margins. There's also fine-tuning in terms of your product listings. There's fine-tuning to be done on how do you show up on searches, because 44% of online shoppers actually start with Amazon first. In fact, it's funny, I went to Home Depot and I was thinking to myself, maybe I should have done a search before I got there, so I could understand what sort of choices I had. But there's certainly a great opportunity for sellers that have various types of categories of products to get visibility. And considering that 55% of all online product searches are beginning at Amazon, the sale may not be happening finally there, but searches happen there. It's really important for you to be visible, to have your products listed, come up with really, really great pricing strategies, and I'm sure we'll do many more webinars around that as well. But today our focus is very much on kind of understanding your fees and your profit margins, because this is where I think most sellers kind of get lost and struggle, because even though they see their revenue growth, they're not quite clear on how it's really impacting their bottom.
Parag, I think those are great points. And one of the things that Parag talks a lot about is this fine-tuning. And as a seller, you're always trying to fine-tune or optimize the way you sell, how you sell your listings. And then when you start looking at those elements, you start kind of diving into the challenges of selling on Amazon. We all know selling on Amazon is wonderful, but there are challenges. So can you talk to us about some of the challenge, Parag?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it should be no surprise, right? With access and such a broad audience, inevitably you'll encounter competition, right? So, the latest stats show that there are over 2 million sellers across 100 plus countries now where Amazon has presence. And with that kind of competition, really, as a seller, you have to really come up with a good strategy on how you're going to compete, because I'm sure many of you that follow Amazon's incredible rise, the one graph that really stands out to me is also the fact that Amazon's its own profit margins are incredibly thin, while its revenue continues to grow at an astronomical rate. And the key is that, Amazon's about pricing, Amazon's about selection, and so you're going to have a lot of competition, and it's really key. This is where my kind of recommendation to sellers is usually have a lot of have a strategy for not just selling on Amazon. Make sure you're aware of what your own primary sales channel is going to be. And be multi-channel, right? Explore multi-channel, and that unfortunately means you then have to have a better, even a more smart sort of pricing strategy. You've got to understand your Amazon fees. I mean, as many of you probably know, those fees can be up to 15% of your sale, and oftentimes if you're dealing with razor-thin margins, it's really hard. Also, as you're looking at how Amazon prioritizes their catalog and the search results, everything's driven by reviews, right? So the better your reviews, the more visibility you'll have, but only 1 in 30 buyers leaves a review, which means, you've got to have a lot of velocity on your products to be able to get, the types of reviews that you need. And last but not least, you have a challenge with fees, right? And because the fees are so high, because the accounting details are unclear to you until you get your settlement date, and even then it's all packaged into a very high-level settlement report. You really struggle to kind of make sense of what that looks like. So, and Allegri, that's a great slide here on the second screen. You can see this is what a sample Amazon settlement report looks like. And I don't know about you guys, but as a seller, your passion, your motivation to build your business stems from growing your business and generating revenue, and it's definitely a daunting task to have to look through these complex fees and reports. And even though they're categorized at this real summary level, just in this example alone, you look at your previous balance of about 900, and you've sold now close to $453, but then net is 608 in your account, which is just, you got to do a lot of Excel magic to really figure all of these fees and details out, and that's really the problem that I see for sellers, is that visibility into their Amazon settlements. And in fact, I'd love to hear from everyone in the audience, how they actually reconcile these fees. And today we're going to talk a little bit, of course, about our OneClick settlement, because we're going to help sellers really demystify how the settlement report appears in their accounting. So let's take a quick look and maybe dive in a little bit to the actual settlement reports and try to understand, why is settling on Amazon just so difficult, right? As you saw from the previous kind of settlement summary screen, it's really hard to look at order level detail to really understand, if I sold those 12-watt halogen bulbs online, what was my net profit? How much did it cost for me to list the product on Amazon? How much did it cost in settlement fees? If I'm using, FBA, what's my FBA fees? It's really difficult to make that assessment, and you can kind of look at your settlement report as a summary, but it doesn't provide the kind of insights you need. So the report can be very confusing. We'll show you a bit of a screenshot of what that download looks like, but it requires a ton of data entry, and typically, you'll end up spending hours on a data entry clerk, or if you're like many small businesses out there, you'll be burning the midnight oil typing that stuff in yourself, which of course can lead to a lot of errors. And so it's fairly daunting, and this is why we want to really make it one click. And it's important because if you don't have access to your fees and details, it can create risk for your business. You might have a false sense of success and profitability because your revenues might be growing, but if you don't know how your bottom line's performing, which products in your catalog are doing well and which ones aren't, it's really important to understand that, because in today's, again, competitive landscape, without that visibility, if you don't act very quickly, and if you're very high volume, the problem just gets further and further magnified. So really, you've got the yin and the yang. You've got incredible amount of power and access with Amazon selling and a lot of capability with FBA, but then there's the kind of the hairy hidden fees elements that you really need to figure out, and so our goal is to make that mission possible. As we stated it right at the top, we want to help demystify all those fees and make it really, really easy for you to look at your QuickBooks, look at your Xero, and easily be able to tell what's going on with your Amazon settlement account. And if this didn't kind of surprise you, or if this is known to you, the next screenshot I hope is very illuminating in terms of what that settlement report looks like, and feels like it's Morse code, but it's a lot of data. This is what a typical settlement report in Amazon looks like. It's a lot of Excel columns, and if you love Excel, and shameless admission, I do love Excel, but whenever I can, I try to get out of it, and find tools that can help me automate more and more aspects of our business. Just even for Webgility, we do, we've implemented a number of tools to help us kind of demystify how our business performance is. And as an Amazon seller, you don't want to be jostling with Excel sheets and trying to decipher what these line items mean. And what we do through our software is really kind of help you demystify that. So let's maybe break it down a little bit and try to understand what the Amazon fees look like. I'm sure you don't kind of need an explainer today on every single fee, but what we're trying to do with this slide and this overview is to give everyone a little bit of a sense of what types of fees there are. And we have a blog article on our website, and we'll be tweeting some links through our Webgility channel as well. Please follow us at Webgility on Twitter, and we'll post links to both these fees and some additional links to our help guide so you can kind of see a breakdown. But here's a high-level overview. The most common fees are going to be your monthly subscription fee. You're going to have a per item fee when you make sales on certain catalog of products. There's referral fees. There's closing costs on certain media items. You often find a high volume fee as well if you're going to list a lot of products and you have very high velocity. If you're doing refunds, you'll encounter fees there. FBA is again another juggernaut. You've got fulfillment fees, you've got packing fees, and yes, it does say unplanned prep fee. I have no idea how they came up with that term, but it's a fee, because if Amazon's doing your fulfillment and there's a problem with the packaging, Amazon's going to plan and prep that. So there's a lot of fees here, and we'll be sharing more articles on what those fees are, but definitely take a look at those those help pages, and you'll get a little bit better understanding. But better yet, use a one-click accounting capability, and we summarize all of this in your accounting system and give you a breakdown as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next few slides, but I know we're about halfway into the webinar. We've got a lot to cover, so we'll keep going.
Thank you, Parag. We do have a lot to cover, and we definitely will keep going along here. Now that we've talked a lot about how a reconciliation, fees, threw around some terms. Now it's time for us to know how you settle your accounting and how you are currently reconciling that information. So we've got this poll here, and if you're using Excel, don't be shy. It's okay. If you don't have a process or don't do it, it's okay too. That's why you're here. All right, I see a lot of responses here. Thank you. I'm seeing a lot of folks. The struggle is real when it comes to Excel and spreadsheets. Okay, closing the poll now. All right, I see the consensus. There is a lot of Excel going on. For the folks that are using Excel, you probably have wonderful pivot tables you've been using, and you're very proud of those. But we're gonna help you move away from that and really start using the power of your accounting. Those of you who are giving it to your bookkeeper and letting your bookkeeper do these things, that's great. We're gonna make it easier for your bookkeeper. If you're using a software tool, awesome. You can take a look at what our tool has and how OneClick Accounting gets this information into your accounting system, and really start evaluating whether your current tool, against, the tool that we have within our product. And the remaining folks don't do it. All right, so we're going to have to get you started on doing it. And so if you're not doing it, when you are doing it with the OneClick Accounting, it will really be a lot easier for you to acclimate, and you'll really be able to tell what's going on in your business. So
I think, Allegra, I may have won that bet. I think we were pretty spot on about what the poll results might be. So yeah, everyone's been. It's so indicative in the results. There's so many folks that are still grappling with Excel, and hopefully with the help of today's webinar, we can get you comfortable with the idea of automating your accounting and being able to get a sense of those financial reports. Now, I see some questions also popping up, so maybe we'll take a quick question here about settling Amazon fees, and looks like there's a question that I think most of Amazon sellers here are well aware of the issues. Let's maybe talk about some of the functionality. So absolutely, we'll be tapping into some of the screenshots, and I know Allegra's got a couple of great slides to walk you through what that Amazon settlement might look like. Also, I see here that some customers are struggling with reconciling backdated settlement reports. So here's the kind of the challenge with Amazon settlement reports. Amazon makes their settlement reports backdated up to about 120 days when you connect using a software like Webgility or any other application for that matter. When you do log into your seller account, you can get historic settlement reports as PDFs, but those settlement reports are only accessible until a 120-day window. Now, we've actually done some really interesting work with our Unify Premium product where you can import old settlement reports, historic reports. So if you're looking to go farther back in time, we do have some capabilities there. But really, this is the key. You want to start off right away, because looking ahead, you have about a 120-day window where those settlement reports are programmatically available so that a software like ours can actually take those settlements and get them automated for you. We have a few more questions here, and we'll dive in. We've got a question here around how do you split your settlement reports across different fulfillment by Amazon and fulfillment by merchant. This is a question coming from Karen. So what we do is in your settlement reports, we actually break down all of the different fees that are associated with both FBA and non-FBA. So Allegra will take us through a quick walkthrough here, but you can take settlements and be able to break out all of your fees that are across FBA and non-FBA items. And also, one of the things that I'm really excited to also share with you guys is our order level profitability detail. So once you've pulled in all of your orders and you've run your settlement report, now keep in mind, even Webgility doesn't know the exact fees until Amazon does the settlement. So what we do is we'll bring in all the orders into the system, but once Amazon's settlement occurs, we do all of the automatic matching of what the fees were, and like I will show you guys in a second here, but then you can look at profitability at an order level, which is just phenomenal feature that should really help you get control of what's happening with your business. So we're going to move forward here, and Allegra's got some information on how the OneClick Accounting for Amazon feature goes, and we'll continue to take your questions and answer them as we get some time towards the end of the webinar.
Great, thank you, Parag. We're just going to get right into the meat and potatoes of this webinar. So now that we've discussed some of the challenges and various processes of reconciliation of Amazon expenses and fees, I want to show you the components of the OneClick Accounting for Amazon that will make the reconciliation process and the reconciliation of the Amazon settlement report combined with the orders or the sales and the refunds that occur within a settlement period easier. So this feature is ideal for all Amazon sellers of all order volumes. So, the folks that are just getting started between 0 and 3 months, it's probably taken you a little bit of time to ramp up. And also for those of you who are selling 2+ years, you've already ramped up. You're probably doing a lot of high volume. Parag did mention if you're, a higher volume, you have, more rapid succession of your settlement period. So this feature is also going to be great for you as well. And also, so if you're, online sellers, I know if you're new or seasoned, or if you've been intimidated by Amazon in the past, this is going to be a really good way to make things easier. And also this is great for accountants. I know that in the poll we asked what is your reconciliation process. A few of you did say that you're giving it over to your bookkeeper. So for the accountants or the bookkeepers on the call, for those of you who struggle with reconciling your clients' Amazon sales data with the revenue that Amazon puts into your deposit into your bank account, this is really geared for you too. So we really cast a wide net with this feature, and really want to make sure this feature can be value added to all types of Amazon sellers. All right, so one of the things that the OneClick does is that first off in Unify, as soon as your settlement report is ready and Unify has downloaded that into its interface, it is able to provide a complete list of all of your Amazon orders. So you can look at all of your orders in terms of what's the order amount, what's the fees, and that will give you kind of a running list of what is going on at this time or within that period of these particular orders and refunds. So this is a really good way that Unify kind of brings this information together once it's ready, and then allows you to really move data to the accounting system en masse. As I mentioned before, Unify, when it downloads the settlement information, it will attach the data within that and put it into this profitability report. And so this is actually viewing a particular order, and within the order we have a profitability report. So you can really see what this is like at the order level, and that's kind of a granular tracking of what is, was this order profitable or not? And so seeing that at a granular level by order is great. But now let's take a look at this context on a larger scale, meaning how do all of the sales and the refunds within a settlement period, in conjunction with the expenses and fees and that impact of that data has on your ability to reconcile this revenue in your accounting system. So now we're going to bring this order level profitability, all of this data coming together, and put this on the larger scale. And this is really the beauty of the OneClick Accounting. The OneClick Accounting allows you to post the daily sales and refunds as a batch At the same time, it posts the settlement report to QuickBooks Online in Xero. I think this is one of the biggest differences too. If you're a current Unify user, this is one of the biggest differences between the current features that we have within the product and this new feature of the OneClick Accounting and the processes that are all attached to it. So we're starting to tie in multiple actions within a single action. And I think this is really where you can now see the speed of that information, getting that information concisely within the accounting system quickly from Unify. As you can see, it tracks the Amazon expenses and the fees from the separate transactions of the sales and the refunds, so you know what sales and refunds are going to be are currently recorded. You know the information is in the accounting system. So this is where these kind of check marks are saying, yes, this information is in there. And then when you combine it with the settlement information, you then have just a rich data set of information that's in the accounting system.
So we have a question coming up, whether this takes into account returns. This is a question from Rod, and yes, Rod, it actually does. And in fact, when you think about returns, especially in the case of FBA, FBA charges returns fees as well. So not only does the settlement report include kind of return revenue, but it and the refund amount, but it also has fees associated with restocking that FBA might charge, and we're able to properly kind of get those and match them and record them into the accounting system as well.
Great aspect. Thank you, Parag. I mentioned that, so this is actually some screenshots of what this information looks like within the accounting system. And we wanted to kind of give you a parallel view of how this information looks in QuickBooks Online and also how it looks within Xero, within the chart of accounts in the transactions that it's doing. So as you know, when it posts the settlement information, it also posts those orders. And so when it posts the settlement information, it's posting those as bills. And once those bills are created, you can also assign whether or not those, certain bills are income, generally income. That's if, Amazon is returning money back to you because they damaged something that you sent them in FBA and they're giving you compensation for that back. And those are one of those hidden fees that are in there. And so if that's an income or, are you pointing certain aspects of the expense and fees to an expense account? This is kind of where all of that balances out within your chart of accounts and your accounting. And then, so within the accounting system, once we send over the settlement information, it records the settlement data as a line item according to the fee group and the combined value within that fee group. I think that's super important to understand. Amazon can at will add any particular fee line to a particular group, but you just want to see what that revenue amount impacts.
Yeah, to be clear, Amazon does give you fair warning when fees are added, but those fees can be, quite daunting. And if you're not keeping track of them, you probably have to log into your seller account frequently and look at your updates stream, and you might get news and updates there and what fees are coming out. In fact, for those of you that are FBA sellers, you're probably aware there's changes happening to the FBA fees. So make sure you log into Seller Central account and take a look at what those fee changes might be. And those, Amazon does frequently kind of audit what their fee structure looks like and just be on top of it. But also a link that we'll provide in our help docs is an FBA calculator. So if you're a new seller, because I saw about 15% or so folks were just getting started, there's also a handy fee calculator where you can enter in kind of your high-level product revenue, your product cost details and your selling price, and it'll give you a kind of a good overview of what the fees might look like for those particular sales, so you know whether it makes sense to sell them or not. We also have another question here from Kristen. Can we control which QBA items are used for each type of Amazon income fees so that it does not all go into sales? Absolutely. We, in fact, are able to automatically create items. If those items don't already exist in your QuickBooks Online or Xero, Unify can automatically create missing items into your accounting system, and you can pick and choose exactly the clearing accounts, your deposit accounts, your item matching for every one of the fees. You even have choices and configuration settings associated with whether you want to record them as bills or an expense item. There's a lot of configurability, and certainly, we don't want to overwhelm you with that. We, in fact, have a really great onboarding team here, which, depending on, what level you're signing up for one of our products, but you'll be able to get a lot of hands-on help. There's a ton of videos. We, in fact, have very recently launched a new program where we do, classroom-style onboarding sessions for customers. So shout out to our customer success team. Take a look at those webinars that we do on a weekly basis, and you'll be able to join and be able to get trained on how to use the product. And once you're set up and going, then it's just all automated. It's all in one click.
Great. And I do see another question here. It says, we were talking about the daily sales and syncing in the daily sales. Unify is able to see the daily sales because it is downloading the information daily. And however, it's not able to generate that profit margin until the settlement report is downloaded within the Unify interface, and then Unify can kind of bring those bits of information together. So that's what I wanted to kind of clear up about, just the timing of the settlement report.
Yeah, and it's really important to recognize here that, we've learned over these many years working with thousands of Amazon sellers that there isn't really one cadence. A lot of sellers like to look at their data on a daily basis. Some folks just want to reconcile on a biweekly or at the end of the month. And so our product, and by design, we've built things so that they can be flexible to your needs. If you want to look at your data on a daily basis, go ahead and do the sync, and at the end of the settlement period, we'll automatically look back at all the activity that happened and neatly package it and reconcile it for you. And if you don't want to look at it on a daily basis, you can set it on autopilot, and every time a settlement happens, we'll download that, sync it to your accounting as one settlement, and you're good to go.
Yes, Parag, and you actually said the magic word there. It's reconciliation. So this is the power of the reconciliation of the OneClick Accounting. So in the previous slides, I was talking about downloading the settlement report when Unify puts that into the accounting system. Well, what happens? So all of you who are giving this information to your bookkeeper, or then trying to look at, all right, what is the deposit? So at the end of your settlement period, when Amazon deposits the revenue in your bank account, what this feature does is that since it puts all that information into the accounting system, you're going to be able to reconcile the data of the paid bills from the sales and the refunds, and either match that in QuickBooks Online or reconcile that in Xero with the deposit that comes directly into your bank feed from Amazon directly. So this is really the power of the OneClick accounting process.
Yeah, I don't want to get too technical on that, everyone, but there's a concept of a clearing account, and what's really recommended, and this is something that we can help you set up as well, or it's fairly straightforward. You want to create an Amazon clearing account in your accounting system, and what that does is kind of maintains this virtual ledger of all the transactions that are happening in Amazon, and we in the software would post against that clearing account. And once you get the actual deposit in your physical bank account from Amazon, you then do a single click deposit. This is what the reconciliation does. It matches what's in your clearing account with the deposit that happened in your bank, and instantly that's cleared out. So you don't have to go through and fidget with every individual transaction. It does this sort of summary level matching. Another question, and boy, maybe an hour is not sufficient for this webinar, but we'll keep going. A question that's come up is QuickBooks Online versus QuickBooks Desktop. It's a question from a couple of different folks, Karen and Karen with an I and an E. We've got, so yes, the answer is, do we do reconciliation for both QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop? We in fact do reconciliation for both, but this one-click capability is currently available for QuickBooks Online and Xero only. It's on a very near-term roadmap to get it enabled for QuickBooks Desktop. We do have a premium edition of our product, which does provide very close to one-click reconciliation. It's fully automated. So if you're using QuickBooks Enterprise editions or QuickBooks Desktop versions, reach out to our sales team, and they'll be able to get you set up on the right version, and also will help support you through your onboarding, so all of this can be set up without you having to really jostle with those Excel files or worry about how to get it going.
Now, Parag, you did mention about the clearing account, and also there's varying styles of reconciliation. So sometimes you have an accountant that can work with a clearing account. Other times you have, an accounting situation where you're really working that undeposited funds account. So if you're working with undeposited funds and want to put all the sales rather than a clearing account but in the undeposited funds, this OneClick Accounting will work with that as well. I have a question here about clearing accounts. What is this concept of clearing account?
Yeah, and the OneClick capability does reconcile against the clearing account. It's just a simple process of creating an Amazon clearing account in your QuickBooks Online file. You'll see that come up when you go through the one-click posting feature. It will ask you for what your clearing account is, and if you don't have one, it'll show that the drop-down's empty. You simply go in and create the account in your QuickBooks Online or Xero, and that'll get automatically posted against that account. It's essentially a holding account. It's a bank account that is inside your accounting file that is used to separately track all of your Amazon transactions, and it's different from your actual bank account because your bank account transaction will only have one deposit every 2 weeks, but if you keep the clearing account, you can maintain a ledger of all of that's happening automatically with our software, and at the end of it, your bank account will show a deposit and your clearing account will show you exactly what that matching is, and they'll be one-to-one, and you'll have reconciled your books.
Yes, thank you for that demystification of the clearing account, Parag. And there was a few questions that we took earlier, and we talked a lot about historical orders, or how do I catch up? Unify is able to download historical orders and their settlement reports 120 days back. So, if you're starting mid-year and want to know, how to finish out or close out your previous year, or you just need to get some historical data in there, it can do this one click up to 120 days back. So this is a really good way to help you catch up and kind of really set the pace for you going forward in your accounting.
We have another question here from Karen. She's using another software, looks like for Shopify to QuickBooks, but not using it for Amazon FBA. This is exactly why, Webgility's Unify is pretty powerful, because it's multi-channel, so you can connect both your FBA accounts, your Shopify accounts, and of course our focus today is very much on Amazon, but you've got the multi-channel capability here, and you can get a full view, and as Allegra is pointing out, there's a lot of benefits here to be able to use a single software that connects a variety of channels. You can automatically create a reconciliation. It works automatically with your bank fees. There's real-time posting as soon as your orders are received. We'll post them into the accounting software. You can also get order level profitability. This, by the way, I'm super excited to share. Do we have a screenshot of that, Allegra? Of the order profitability? Yeah, that's a fantastic feature. I get really excited by that, because I love to see kind of how the business is performing at an order level, because that really helps me kind of understand where my margins are. We have another quick question here, which is related to our Unify Enterprise software. So we have a premium plan. It's called, for our on-premise software, it's called Unify Enterprise. And that premium plan does provide accounting sync capability. It does not do it at one click, but it does it in an automated way. The only piece that's really missing with that application, and we're doing some fine-tuning, but it doesn't match the deposits correctly yet. And that's a capability we're working on with our enterprise software, specifically for QuickBooks Enterprise users. But for QBO and zero customers, this one-click feature is a great add, and it works with all of our plans that you see on our website. We've got about 5 minutes here, and Allegra, how are we doing on time here?
We're running close to the end of the time here, so yeah, let's actually kind of speed through this a little bit. I know that we've gotten a lot of really good questions along the way, but again, reiterating, once this one-click is embedded into your process, really we want to talk about how this is long-term benefits to your accounting. So you're going to be able to see trends a lot better, that historical context, so getting in those historical orders to help you catch up, the simple and compliant accounting, so really working and understanding the processes that your bookkeeper has to go through to reconcile this information, making it clear for them. Also clearer metrics, knowing exactly, running those reports within the accounting system where you have your costs and you can run your P&L by, let's say, class. So you really understand what's going on with your e-commerce business in the not only of the context of Amazon, but also in the context of your overall business health and running those reports within the accounting system, and which will lead you right into business insights. I think that is one of the fundamental keys of this, and the purposes of this is really showing you how to make your business more efficient.
Yeah, definitely there's, in terms of both short-term and long-term, having visibility on how your business is actually performing is incredibly valuable. I mean, I can share with you personally as the CEO of the company, for me to have a pulse on how our financials are at a very granular level, and to be able to understand where our money is being spent, whether it's in the marketing team, whether it's in product development, whether it's, we don't obviously have physical products, but when we do subscriptions of our software, we look at our margins there. So having those insights is key to having a successful business. And, I always believe in leading with data. And so not only does the data help you become a better business owner, but it also helps you become more powerful and knowledgeable about your business. And that way you can make smarter decisions and really help your teams as you're growing your e-commerce business. We have a few more questions sort of trickling in, and since we have a minute or so, I'll jump in. We have Danita asking, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Danita. Your question was, you started your business about a year ago, and your QuickBooks entries might not be structured the same way as Webgility, and would that present a problem if you got started in January? You know what, the way I think about it is, better late than never, but more importantly, it's always great to start off your financial year with really clear and clean books. So if you have been reconciling differently in the past, and if it's a little mucky, it's okay. You can get started fresh. In fact, you can settle and close out your books for the previous year and get started with a brand new setup. Our onboarding team's also here to assist you. Like I said, we have classroom style onboarding as well that are free to attend, and you can log in, and our experts will kind of show you how to easily connect your Amazon account, connect your QuickBooks, and easily get set up, and everything starting from January can get automatically reconciled. Remember, you can only go as far as 120 days back, so the sooner you get started, that you can start the process, and then from that day onwards, all of your books will always be up to date. We have another question from Matthew. If you're stocking merchandise, does inventory costs get adjusted for storage fees and storage fees per item? So when we actually get the FBA settlement report, the storage fees that are in the settlement report are going to be available at that order level. So if when you look at the order profitability screen, it will show you what the fees were associated with that particular order. Now, if you're storing items for a longer period, there are also storage fees that are not associated with an order. If you didn't actually make a sale against an item, they'll just be general storage fees, and those are put as a sort of a lump sum, if you will, as storage fees inside your accounting. We have a lot more questions, and I could probably keep going at this for hours, but we'll have another follow-up webinar, and we'll talk more about Amazon settlements and fees. Allegra, take it from here. Thank you all so much for attending. This has been a fantastic webinar for us, and we hope this was informative for all of you.
Thank you very much for joining our webinar today. And I would also like to give a tremendous thank you to our special guest, the CEO of Webgility, Parag, for giving
I
his
love it. I
time.
love these sessions, and I look forward to doing a lot more. Thank you so much.
And thank you very much, Parag, for your time and very, very valuable information. It was great interacting with all of you, and I know there was a lot of questions, so our business advisors will be likely following up with you on those particular questions. So I hope you have had a great time. We've had a wonderful time meeting with you, and we look forward to having you as clients and users of Webgility Unify and the OneClick Accounting for Amazon in the future. Have a great day.